You want to be applauded, but you've done nothing worth clapping for. You crave respect, but live without discipline. You dream of being remembered, yet forget yourself in every moment of weakness. Epictetus, a slave-turned-philosopher, would look at the modern man and laugh, not out of contempt, but out of recognition, because he warned us. He warned that most men don't suffer from lack of opportunity, but from lack of inner clarity. And today, more than ever, we see that disease. Men chasing attention like it's purpose, chasing affirmation like it's proof of life, wearing ambition like a mask instead of bearing sacrifice like a burden. They want the reward, not the rigor. They want the crown, not the crucible. And Epictetus, standing in the ashes of empire and ego alike, would ask you, what have you endured that gives your desires weight? We are a generation of spectators who want to be seen as warriors, but warriors are forged in silence, not spotlight. They are carved out of restraint, forged through delay, calloused by refusal. The modern man scrolls, posts, reacts. He wants to be celebrated for opinions, not mastery. But Epictetus taught that to live well is not to speak well. It is to govern the self, to own your impulses before they own you, to choose what is right over what is easy again and again until your character is no longer a performance but a fortress. He didn't become a philosopher in marble halls. He became one while bound in chains. That's what made his teachings immortal. Not flair, but fire. Not noise, but necessity. And what about you? You who want to be called wise, noble, successful. What weight have you carried? What appetites have you denied?
We live in a world of convenience dressed as courage. Men who can't go a single day without distraction talk about wanting impact. But how can you impact a world you can't even withdraw from? Epictetus believed that freedom isn't found in indulgence, it's found in control. Not control over others, but control over yourself. Can you sit in silence without itching for a screen? Can you wake without a phone, eat without a podcast, walk without music? If not, you are not free. You are held hostage by your comforts. And men who are held hostage by comfort will never be trusted with power, because power without sacrifice is tyranny in disguise. The Stoic didn't ask for ease. He asked for endurance. He didn't ask, how can I be praised? He asked, how can I be clean? Not physically, morally, internally, free from resentment, free from entitlement, free from the noise that makes cowards feel like kings. But what do? You compare, you scroll, you stew in envy while doing nothing to sharpen our edge. You want what the disciplined man has without paying what the disciplined man paid. And so our lives become simulations, presentable, but powerless. Epictetus had nothing. No wealth, no legacy by blood. Yet he had one thing that made emperors tremble, the ability to endure without bitterness, to lose without collapsing, to win without boasting. That is the strength you were meant to build, but you cannot build it while begging for attention or clinging to comfort. You cannot become a man by echoing trends. You become a man when you can suffer and still choose virtue over vengeance. Pain doesn't make you noble, your posture inside the pain does. And most men today don't want to hear that, because sacrifice sounds like death when you've been living only for sensation. The Stoic doesn't seek applause because he knows it's fleeting. He doesn't decorate his pain, he transforms it. And that's what most men today have forgotten. We wear our wounds like identity. We expect affirmation because we've suffered. But suffering doesn't entitle you to praise. Everyone suffers. What matters is what you become through it, what you cut off, what you commit to, what you let die in yourself so something stronger can live. Epictetus would ask, not what you've been through, but what you've learned. Not what you're planning, but what you've disciplined. Not what you hope, but what you've chosen. If you're still living for applause, you're still performing. And if you're still performing, you're not free, you're rented. And rented men will always be discarded once the crowd finds someone louder. So ask yourself honestly, do you want to be great or just admired?
Because if it is admiration you seek, then you will live like a ghost, seen maybe, even envied, but never grounded in anything real. But if it is greatness you seek, the kind that doesn't need a camera, the kind that does not require clapping, then you must bleed where others break and stay silent where others scream. You must become intolerant of your own weakness, not in hatred, but in resolution. You must want inner mastery more than outer recognition, because only that kind of man walks unshaken through fire. And in a world of noise and panic and projection, that kind of man becomes dangerous, not by force, but by presence. You want to be seen, fine. But Epictetus would ask you this: would you still live well if no one ever noticed?
Most men today live in cages they built themselves. Cages made of comfort, approval, cheap pleasure, and still they complain that they feel trapped. But Epictetus would tell you, you are not trapped, you're just soft. You weren't denied freedom, you refused responsibility. You weren't robbed of greatness, you traded it for convenience. Every man wants to be powerful until he's told that power costs him everything he loves about being passive. You can't scroll your way into virtue. You can't manifest your way into discipline. You can't hashtag your soul into alignment. You must suffer. You must choose. You must lose parts of yourself that once made you feel safe. Because the man who still clings to comfort as his God will never arise. He may be liked, he may be envied, but he will not be respected, especially by himself. And that's what Epictetus understood, long before modern men started asking the world to validate their wounds. He knew that strength isn't something you pose into, it's something you bleed into. You must rehearse difficulty. You must willfully confront resistance. And not for display, but for dominion. Over what? Over the only kingdom that matters, yourself. What's the point of being admired if you are a slave to impulse? What's the value in being followed if you can't even lead your thoughts into order? The Stoic path is brutal. It does not reward you for intentions. It does not care how you feel about the work. It demands the work with or without the applause. Because virtue is not a performance. It's a path. And every man walking it must bury his excuses along the way. But look around. Excuses are now currency. Complaints are now identity. Weakness, when dressed in poetic language, is mistaken for depth. And men who refuse to flatter their own dysfunction are labeled cold.
Epictetus didn't care about your story. He cared about your stance. When pain came, did you curse or compose? When desire burned, did you chase or contain? When the world disappointed, did you collapse or continue? Those were the marks of the man. Not what you posted, not what you tweeted, but what you controlled when everything inside you screamed to react. Most men today mistake reaction for power, but reaction is slavery. The man who must always say what he feels, post what he thinks, indulge when he's tempted, that man is not free. He's exposed. He's predictable, and predictability is the beginning of manipulation. That's why modern systems reward the reactive man, because he's easy to guide, easy to flatter, easy to destroy. But the Stoic is not easy. He is stable. He is private. He is controlled not by suppression, but by structure. And that structure isn't given, it's built. One refusal at a time, one broken pattern at a time. One morning when the alarm rings and the weaker man hits snooze, but you don't. One moment when your flesh begs to be indulged, but you don't. One night when you want to numb yourself with scrolling or sex or substances, but you sit instead in the fire of your own thoughts and let them burn away, the part of you that still wants to be rescued. That's how you build a man. not by performance, but by perseverance. Epictetus knew that a free man is the rarest thing in the world, not because freedom is hard to find, but because most men sell it too cheaply. They traded for the temporary applause of people who will never bleed for them. And here's the brutal truth. No one is coming to crown you. No one is going to beg you to become excellent. No one is going to force you to become whole. The world will let you rot in mediocrity. It will feed your addiction to comfort. It will applaud your victimhood. It will let you lie to yourself as long as you stay quiet, stay soft, stay safe. But Epictetus didn't raise his voice for those men. He wrote for the few, the ones willing to suffer on purpose, to detach from what flatters them, to walk away from what weakens them, to strip themselves of every crutch and stand wobbly, naked, unknown, but real. That's the beginning of greatness. Not likes, not status, but self-command. And if that makes you invisible, then let the world forget you, because the men who truly matter are not remembered because they were popular. They're remembered because they endured. You say you want to be respected, to be followed, to be known, but would you still want it if it meant sacrificing your comfort, your illusions, your place in the crowd? Most wouldn't. That's why praise today is cheap, because so few are willing to earn it. But Epictetus wasn't speaking to the crowd. He was speaking to the soul inside the man who is tired of being soft, tired of being swayed, tired of being celebrated for pretending, and ready to be forged in private, even if no one notices. Because in that fire, the man becomes untouchable. And in a world built on performance, nothing is more terrifying than a man who is free.
There's a reason Epictetus didn't build temples or monuments. His philosophy wasn't made for worship. It was made for war, the kind that takes place inside a man when no one's watching. You want validation? Then prepare to be manipulated. You want peace? Then prepare to be emptied, because there is no inner peace without inner warfare. You will have to kill the version of yourself that keeps reaching for comfort like its purpose. You'll have to bury the part of you that begs to be seen, that thinks applause is nourishment. You will have to abandon the soft delusions that you are owed anything simply because you dream or desire. Epictetus didn't teach you to chase praise. He taught you to become someone who doesn't need it. He taught you to walk through rejection without losing your values, to endure betrayal without poisoning your heart, to be so focused on your own character that even success feels like a distraction. Because the man who needs to be admired is still a slave. Only now, his master is the crowd. Look around today. Men are more educated, more connected, more expressive than ever before. And still, they are lost. Still, they are weak because they've learned everything except mastery over themselves. They've learned how to argue, how to posture, how to pretend, but not how to endure. Not how to sit in failure without flinching. Not how to hear no and keep going. Not how to be alone without being lonely. But Epictetus mastered all three. Not because he was superhuman, but because he was willing to suffer where others escaped. You want his strength? Then stop looking for shortcuts. Stop praying for an easier road. There is no easier road. There is only the one where you become so strong internally that even failure cannot humiliate you. The one where you build a mind so clear that chaos outside cannot touch the order within. The one where you stop asking to be seen and start demanding of yourself that you become unshakable, whether anyone notices or not.
A stoic man does not glow in the dark. He burns in silence. He doesn't need to be told he's good. He does what's good because he knows nothing else is worthy of him. He isn't seduced by trends because he knows they pass. He isn't addicted to expression because he knows the world doesn't need his opinion. It needs his example. And that's what separates the rare few from the majority. The majority think philosophy is a lifestyle. Epictetus knew it was a battlefield. Every day, your flesh will tell you to quit. Your ego will tell you to show off. Your mind will scream for distraction. And if you listen, you will lose not just momentum, not just progress, but yourself. The world today offers you everything: entertainment, affirmation, instant gratification, but what it cannot offer you is what your soul craves: wholeness. That can only come from sacrifice, and if you reject sacrifice, you reject strength. But here's the paradox: the more you sacrifice comfort, the stronger you become, and the stronger you become, the less you need what the world gives. At some point, the man who suffers with dignity becomes invincible. His silence becomes louder than the crowd's cheers. His restraint becomes more commanding than another man's performance. That's what Epictetus meant when he said, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And that mastery isn't glamorous, it's not flashy, it's slow, it's repetitive. It's built in the hours when other men are sleeping or scrolling or whining. You earn it in the dark, but the moment it's forged, you are no longer like them. You are no longer breakable.
You must understand, the Stoic life is not a call to coldness, it's a call to fire. A fire that purifies, that burns away your weakness, not by magic, but by decision, again and again. And yes, it will cost you. It will cost you ease. It will cost you popularity. It will cost you the temporary comforts that most people live and die chasing. But in return, it gives you something rare: the ability to look in the mirror without shame, to walk into battle without trembling, to sit in solitude and know you are not empty but full, to live without applause and still rise like a king. That is what Epictetus offers. Not popularity, not comfort, but sovereignty. So stop asking to be seen. Stop hoping to be praised. Start building something within that no one can touch. Because in the end, the men who are celebrated the loudest are often the weakest. But the men who walk alone, unbent, unbothered, undefeated, they change the world. Not with words, with will, with silence, with sacrifice. The men who were never cheered for, but never needed it. The men who were forgotten by the crowd, but remembered by time. The men who don't ask for praise, they earn it. And when they die with nothing left to prove. Be that man.